What's going on, Nerd Nation? This is Sleevecard signing in and welcome you back to another episode of Test That Team, the series where we take someone's creative ideas off the internet, I completely butcher them with my poor, horrible, terrible battling skills out there on Showdown, and then at the very end of it all, we break it down and let you know if this team is a stud or a dud. That way you can use it yourself. Well, in today's episode, you guys, we have a team courtesy of LL out there on Smogon, so shout out to LL and his Rain Dance team that we are going to be checking out today. Now, Rain, of course, is pretty prominently used. It did get nerfed a little bit like a couple gens ago, but it's been making a solid comeback ever since we entered Alola. But, however, this is the first Rain team I'm actually going to look at on the channel. And the reason I wanted to check out this team is because it had one factor that stands out from pretty much all of the other rain or weather-based teams I've seen before, and that's the use of a little-known, underused Pokemon that is not underused in the sense of UU, but we're talking never used all the way down in NU, and we're dragging it all the way back up to OU, so we're pulling it up from the depths of Pokemon all the way up to OU, and that is Qwilfish, the poison, I don't want to say poison point Pokemon because that, I believe, is Nidorino. But, the poison-tipped pufferfish Pokemon. And it's interesting because Qwilfish, you just don't see that much. Like, obviously, you barely see it in OU. I don't think I've come across a Qwilfish competitively, ever. So I thought I would check it out, and we kind of see how it works. So as the team is scrolling by on the side, you can check out all of their movesets, their items, their abilities, their EV spread, IV spread, if there's any variation there, which I don't think there is for this team. But while that's going on, let's check out how it works. So, like all weather teams, your first priority is going to be setting up the corresponding weather. So in this case, Pelipper, 98-99% of the time, Pelipper is going to be your lead. You're going to go out, get that passive rain set up through Drizzle, and then you have the Damp Rock as well to kind of extend it out as many turns as possible. And then I pretty much exclusively found myself from that point either going Scald or U-turn. Scald is only if you have a typing advantage. Every other chance I went straight for U-turn and I try to get out one of my Swift Swim Mons as fast as possible. That way I'm not wasting turns with the rain up. And then I would go into Qwilfish or Swampert, just depending on what I wanted to do. Now, Qwilfish, I will talk about a little bit because Qwilfish, of course, is the star, the main focus of the team. Qwilfish is interesting. So this particular Qwilfish set, he's holding on to the Life Orb to give him a little bit boost of power. Now, he does have Swords Dance, Liquidation, Poison Jab, and Explosion. Swords Dance, honestly, I think once, twice, maybe I got it set up in a match. I just never really found the opportunity to get setup moves. However, with the Swift Swim setup, the big stud thing for me was the fact that Explosion exists on here. So with Swift Swim, you pretty much are getting priority on all of your moves. Like, you're not actually getting priority, but the way your speed tier is going to be worked out, you're getting priority unless they use priority. That's a whole nother story. But you're pretty much guaranteed to strike first unless your opponent goes for priority. And the cool thing for me is Liquidation, Poison Jab obviously are stab moves. They do a decent amount of coverage. Poison Jab, you can kind of surprise a couple Grass Mons if they're not expecting it. I caught a couple Tapu Bulo off guard while I was testing out this team, and they did not appreciate a stab, Swift Swim, outspeeding Poison Jab. Didn't appreciate it at all. The other cool thing is Explosion. So, obviously, Qwilfish is not known for its defense. It is a little on the frail side, especially special. Defense-wise, it's on the frail side. Physically, it's okay. Like, it's okay on physical defense. So, if you know you're going to lose Qwilfish, don't be afraid to sack it off with an Explosion against a bulkier Mon. Just that way you can do as much damage and a huge dent as possible. And then our other Swift Swim Sweeper, which you're going to see a bit, is obviously Mega Swampert. Mega Swampert, how should I put it? Mega Swampert is, frankly, it's just unfair. Like, Mega Swampert is almost borderline broken, unfair to use, because he's a monster in the rain. Like, one, Swift Swim, his one weakness in general is his speed. When you look at his stats, the one weakness for Mega Swampert that stands out instantly is speed. But with Swift Swim, you don't have to worry about that. So once he's in the rain, speed becomes negligible. he's hitting with boosted waterfalls. Ice Punch and Earthquake give great coverage, especially Ice Punch. Catching something off guard like a grass type, amazing. I love it. The other 3 mons all kind of serve as like a defensive check / semi-taking advantage of the rain, stuff like that. Ferrothorn's going to be your primary defensive check, and that's about it. I mean, you're going to get your knockoff, set up rocks, set up leech seed, all that good stuff. The rest of them, Ash Greninja is kind of your generic sweeper. Somewhat takes advantage of the rain and the fact that like Hydro Pump and Water Shuriken get boosted, but not something that I would lead with, and not something I really found myself using too much. And then of course you have Tapu Koko with that 100% Thunder in the rain. Now Tapu Koko also plays another interesting role that I'll touch upon here in a second. But before we get into that, let's take a look at what this team does really well. As you can see all my notes up here on this side of the screen here. So being in rain and taking advantage of that rain with Swift Swim lets us take advantage of the pacing of the battle. So we're almost always going to hit first as long as rain's up and we have one of our 2 Swift Swim sweepers out. So we can really control the pace of the battle, because again, if they don't hit with priority, we have the priority. 2, on the pace of battle thing, we can also slow things down. We can put a lot of pressure on things with 100% Thunders, with Stab in the Rain waterfalls. There's a lot of pressure you can exert with this team to force swaps and force things of that nature. The second thing it does really well is it confuses a lot of people out with Qwilfish. Again, Qwilfish you just don't see. And it's not uncommon to go into an OU match and maybe you run across like a UU or something where it's 1 tier down that got dragged up for the purposes of a team. But for something that's pretty much borderline, I mean, the tier is called NeverUsed for a reason. So something coming out of NeverUsed, frankly, is never used. So it does throw a lot of people off because they're not sure what moveset it's going to carry. They're not sure exactly where its stats are, things of that nature. So it can throw some of your opponents off, and I've seen a couple of them where they make questionable moves. Like I had somebody set up Toxic Spikes on me before. Actually, a couple times. I had a couple people set up Toxic Spikes on me, and because they didn't see it coming, you're able to switch in Qwilfish and absorb the Toxic Spikes, things of that nature. And of course, I mentioned this before, but I love having that explosion, because there are some bulky mons that a lot of people try and send out on you, like Ferrothorn and whatnot, that Qwilfish just is not going to break through. And if you know you're going to lose Qwilfish already, just blow it up, get as much damage as you can. It's not going to be great damage on Ferrothorn, so that might have been a bad example, but other things, you can do a quality bit of damage, especially on the off chance that you've got that Swords Dance up. Of course, that's what it does well, but everything has things it doesn't do well. And this team is no exception to that. So one of the things is in setting up weather, and I had this discussion with a couple other people out on the YouTube/Twitterverse, but I wish it had like a third option for setting up weather. Now, everybody else assured me that every weather team they've ever run usually only carries 2 options to set up whatever the desired weather is, so I'm not going to beat it up too much for that, but it does rely very heavily on Pelipper. So like I said, if you have a smart opponent, they pretty much know Pelipper is going to come out first, and they can plan around that. So then you also need to, the couple times I don't use Pelipper is because I kind of over-predict them, or I don't over-predict, but I predict that they're going to predict my Pelipper. So I might swap out things like start with Ferrothorn just to kind of nip it in the bud so I don't have to make the switch. So there are times where you do have to rely a little heavily on Pelipper, which cannot be a good thing, because anytime your opponent knows what you're going to do, it puts you at a distinct disadvantage. And then Swampert, I mean, obviously has Rain Dance, so it can bring up rain if it needs to. But again, Swampert has a very distinct weakness being grass moves, and if that gets predicted, it's easily predicted, because they know you're going to have to go for Rain Dance, and they know that you're wasting a turn doing that, so it's easily predicted. And of course, there is no Wall Breaker. So, like I said, Tapu Koko has a distinct role on this team beyond, of course, 100% Thunders. And Tapu Koko's ideal role is to break through walls and bulkier mons, and is doing that through Guardian of Alola and using the Tapunium Z and all that good stuff. However, it does create a bit of a drawback because you're not crushing through teams like you'd want. And if you have a team that runs, let's say, multiple bulky mons, the two I have showing here are... The two I have here are Toxapex. Sorry, I forgot where I was going for a second. The two I have here are Toxapex and Tangrowth, but you do, of course, see a lot of Ferrothorns. I particularly saw a ton of, like, Chansey / Clefable, stuff like that. And if you get stuck in those huge, bulky battles, especially against the grass and the water types where they're bulky, you can get dragged way down into the muck. Especially the grass types, because you don't have a lot that's going to handle, let's say, a Ferrothorn. So you're so reliant on this one particular Z move, and hopefully you do half damage, and then you still probably have to do another attack or 2 attacks just to get it to where you need to be. So there's just not a lot of wall breaking options, because you're really reliant on Tapu Koko landing a very necessary hit, and possibly also Ferrothorn getting a knockoff before that to get rid of any passively healing item, like a Leftovers or something along those lines. So that's what it does well. That's what it doesn't do well. But let's take a quick run through of the grades, and then we'll see if this team is a stud or a dud. So, as you can see, the team, and I'll let the grades kind of go by with my reasoning and stuff like that, but overall, it does, like I said, it does things well. It operates within its own conditions very well. So when you need... what am I trying to say? It operates well in its own conditions. So if you are within very certain check boxes, you know, is the rain up? Yes. Do I have a Swift Swim Sweeper still? Yes. Are they not blocking me out with Ferrothorn or something of that like? Yes. So if you hit those certain criteria, then this team operates above and beyond what it needs to. If one of those 3 boxes is unchecked, if you have Tapu Bulo or Ferrothorn or Tangrowth, or any number really of bulky, heavy, like big, thick, fat grass and water type sweepers, the team struggles quite a bit. If the rain's not up, the team struggles quite a bit, because you're not going to outspeed... Frankly, you're not going to outspeed with Ferrothorn, you're not going to outspeed with anything other than maybe Ash Greninja. So if you haven't hit those two, you know, you're going to struggle. So if you don't have the set win conditions built up and you're not doing it constantly, like, then you're going to struggle quite a bit. So it does things really well. It does struggle when you don't do things, let's say, by the book. But what's interesting about that is I feel like it makes it a very accessible team, because a lot of newer battlers that, let's say, don't need a lot of, or they don't have a lot of nuance just yet, it does operate kind of like a complete plug-and-play team. And by that, I mean, you almost have a checklist. Like I said, is the rain up? Do I have a Swift Swim Sweeper that can come out? Have I taken care of whatever the defensive check is? If you check those boxes, then you're all set. Now, for a beginning trainer, they don't necessarily have to predict as much or over-predict or anything like that with this team, because you know what you're going to do. Like I said, 9 times out of 10, you're going to have Pelipper as your lead. Then after that, you're probably going to go for a U-turn. Then after that, you're going to probably Mega Evolve. Like, you just go one to the next, to the next, to the next, and it's pretty standard blueprint with very little variation and deviation. I mean, you guys can watch my playthroughs that are kind of running through as this video goes. It is very straightforward. The team doesn't deviate. I don't switch things up like crazy, because you don't need to. Now, when you do get behind, it's very hard to dig yourself back out. So one of the themes you see in my battles, I do typically fall behind like 1 mon, 2 mons, and stuff like that. And most of the time I am able to dig myself back out, but it does take a little bit of effort on that side. But with that being said, guys, overall I'm giving this team a B- for all the reasons you kind of saw down the side there. But with that being said, check it out yourself. Links to this team will be down in the description, so you can try it yourself. And, of course, leave me a comment letting me know if you think I'm a fool, if I misused it, if I am just more amazing of a battler than I ever realized. Or if you guys have a team that you'd like me to check out next, because I am always looking for ideas, I always want to see something creative, go ahead and shoot me a message or a link or something like that down below as well. I'll check it out, and maybe you'll be on the next episode of Test That Team. But with that being said, guys, I'm going to go ahead and get on out of here. Shoutouts once again to LL at Smogon for coming up with this team, and of course links to it will be down in the description so you can let him know what you think of the team. But I'm going to go ahead and get on out of here. This is Sleevecard signing out. Have yourselves a beautiful day, and I'll see you later.